I swear I wasn't trying to die that weekend. It was just supposed to be a chill trip. Me and two of my buddies escaping the noise, drinking beer in the Rockies, getting off our phones, pretending like we're outdoorsy now. We found this cabin listed by some off-grid mountain dude on a site that might have been Craigslist but with extra tetanus. The cabin was small, old, and freezing, but it had a generator, a wood stove, and one bar of Wi-Fi if you leaned toward the window like you were trying to connect with aliens. We got there Friday, planned a long hike for Saturday. Supposed to be a scenic loop with mountain views and some frozen-ass waterfall people wouldn't shut up about in the reviews. The trail wasn't dangerous, according to the comments, just long, like 6 or 7 miles, but we were in decent shape and figured it'd be fun. We started late because we were all hungover as hell. I think we hit the trail at like 10:30, maybe closer to 11. I had water, a hoodie, some granola bars, and gloves I stole from my roommate 2 years ago. It was cold, but sunny. Nothing crazy, until we hit this fork in the trail, and suddenly everything turned into a debate. There were 2 signs, both faded, one snapped in half. One arrow said, Scenic Point A, but had an X scratched into it. The other one was just blank. My friends swore we had to go right. I thought left. We argued, laughed, and in the dumbest move ever, I said, screw it, I'll meet you back at the cabin, and peeled off solo. Honestly, I thought I was smart for avoiding the debate. I figured I'd circle around and beat them back. Felt kinda smug about it. The trail looked solid at first. Some boot prints, freshish snow, no sketchy ice patches. I was even listening to music for a bit, pretending I was in a REI commercial or something. But after like 40 minutes, the boot prints vanished. The trees got dense, the trail narrowed, then just stopped. I assumed maybe it was under the snow, or I took a slight detour, but then the fog rolled in. And when I say fog, I mean horror movie shit. That kind of thick, white-out mist that eats sound and makes trees look like people in the distance. My visibility dropped to maybe 10 feet, tops. The sky turned gray, light dimmed fast. I turned around, or at least I thought I did, and started walking back. Except nothing looked familiar. Everything was just snow and trees. I kept thinking, okay, I'll recognize that branch, or, that rock looks familiar, but it didn't. The landscape was blending into one endless, freezing loop. I checked my phone, 0 service. Then I remembered I'd left it in the car. That's when I had the first little spike of panic. Like a jolt in my stomach. I tried to stay calm. Kept walking, kept pretending I wasn't scared. By the time it hit 2 p.m., I knew I was lost. The sun was still up technically, but behind the clouds and fog, it might as well have been dusk. I started calling out, not screaming, just yelling, hey, every few steps. Nothing. Just the sound of wind. I started walking faster, heart pounding, every crunch of snow under my boots sounding louder than it should have. Then I slipped. Nothing major, just stepped on a patch of hard ice and landed on my ass. But that cold hit my back like a slap, and I realized how wet my clothes had gotten from sweating under the hoodie. That's when it started sinking in, I could freeze out here. My fingers were stiff, hard to move. I'd been walking for hours with no clue where I was. I sat on a fallen log and ate my last granola bar, hands trembling, chewing slowly like it was going to give me energy or ideas. I looked around and realized I hadn't seen another human being since I split off. No animals, no birds, just that dead, blank quiet of snow swallowing everything. It got darker fast after that, like unnaturally fast. My legs were weak, and my knees started locking when I stopped for too long. The wind picked up, cutting through my jacket like it wasn't even there. I remember trying to unzip my hoodie to adjust it and not being able to grip the zipper. My fingers just didn't respond. They were red, then white. Numb. I remember thinking that was bad, but I couldn't focus. My brain was foggy. I kept blinking like I was gonna reset everything if I just focused hard enough. Then the snow started again. Not soft flakes, sharp, blowing snow, horizontal, painful against the skin. I ducked behind a log, wrapped my arms around my knees, and told myself this would pass. It didn't. I started thinking about what it feels like to freeze to death. Some article one read once said it gets peaceful. Like you fall asleep. I didn't feel peaceful, though. I felt like my body was betraying me, getting slower, colder, heavier. I thought about my mom. About my dog. About my friends back at the cabin who were probably just starting to realize I hadn't shown up yet. I imagined them going, shit, maybe we should have waited. I even pictured the search party. Bright orange jackets, shoveling snow, then that awkward silence when someone sees a boot sticking out. I wondered if I'd be frozen with my eyes open. I wondered if animals would find me before people did. That was the moment where I thought, this is it. This is how I go out, cold, alone, and stupid. And then I laughed, like full, cracked out laugh. I couldn't help it, it just came out, loud and ugly. Because if that was my ending, it was the dumbest one possible. I leaned against that log, closed my eyes, and waited for whatever came next. I don't know how long I had my eyes closed. Could have been minutes, could have been an hour. My concept of time had collapsed into this weird frozen blur. There was no past, no future. Just cold. It was in my bones, in my jaw, in my goddamn soul. I remember wondering if this was what dying felt like, just slowly becoming part of the snow. But then something twitched, a nerve, maybe, or my brain panicking, but I started seeing weird flashes behind my eyelids, bright spots, shapes that didn't make sense. A woman's voice, I swear to God, clear as day, whispering my name. Not someone I knew, just a voice. It scared the hell out of me, not because it was creepy, but because I felt like I was slipping. Like my brain was starting to detach. Then, I saw my daughter's face. I don't even have a daughter. That's how far gone I was. My brain just made her up, I guess. But she looked at me like I was breaking her heart. This tiny little face, crying, and I had no idea who she was, but I felt this insane pressure in my chest like I was disappointing her. And I think that's what brought me back. Like something in my gut just screamed, get up. Get up. I opened my eyes. It was dark, way darker than before, stars above, faint, but there. The storm had passed. My whole body felt like stone. My legs were stiff, my fingers were numb, and I was shivering so hard it felt like I was going to crack a rib. But I moved. Somehow, I moved. I stumbled through the woods like a drunk toddler, every step a miracle. I didn't know where I was going, just forward. I tried yelling again, but it came out dry and hoarse. I couldn't feel my feet anymore. At one point I fell face first into the snow and just stayed there, eyes open, face buried, like, okay, maybe now. But then I saw it. A flicker, orange, warm, fire. My brain didn't even process it at first. I thought I was hallucinating again. But I forced myself to crawl toward it. Hands numb, face burning from the cold, nose probably bleeding. The light got brighter, then I heard a voice. An actual voice. Yo, over here, holy shit, dude, turns out I had somehow looped around and gotten within 100 yards of another cabin. Not ours. Some old ranger shack or emergency shelter. Whatever it was, it had light and heat. Some other hikers were staying there, saw me stumbling through the woods like a half-dead snow zombie. They dragged me inside, gave me hot water, wrapped me in blankets. I couldn't even talk for the first 10 minutes. My lips didn't move, I just sat there, twitching, tears running down my cheeks because holy shit, I wasn't dead. They gave me soup. I remember the soup. It tasted like heaven. I couldn't feel my tongue, but I remember crying just from the warmth. They called for help, and a snowmobile showed up like an hour later to bring me back down the trailhead. When I finally reunited with my friends, they looked like they'd seen a ghost. They had already called search and rescue. They thought I'd fallen off a ridge or frozen somewhere in the woods. I didn't even get mad at them. I just sat in the car, shaking like I'd aged 30 years in one day. They tried to joke about it later. You know, bro, next time maybe stay with the group, and guess we know who not to trust with directions. I laughed, but inside, I was messed up. I didn't sleep for days after. I kept dreaming I was still out there. That I never got up. That the fire was fake. It took a while to stop looking over my shoulder in the cold. Took a while to eat granola without feeling sick. But I lived, barely. And you know the weirdest part? I never figured out whose cabin that was. It wasn't on the maps. No markers, no names. It was just there. Some people say it's an old ranger post that's not in use anymore. Some say hikers just squat there in winter. Me? I don't ask too many questions. All I know is, if I'd closed my eyes for another 5 minutes, I probably wouldn't have opened them again. You ever had that exact moment where you're like, yup, this is it, this is how I die? Tripping balls in a Cold War tomb, surrounded by glow sticks and bass drops, dressed like a radioactive sex muppet. Just me? Cool. So this whole mess started when I decided to find myself by getting lost in Eastern Europe, which basically meant getting blackout drunk in strange cities, sleeping in hostels that smelled like pickles and regret, and swiping right on any local who had piercings and a questionable sense of danger. That's how I met Anya. Anya looked like someone who either did tattoos or sold Molotovs to anarchists. Black eyeliner sharp enough to cut glass, buzzed sides, combat boots, and a leather jacket that probably had a body count. She smiled like she knew secrets that could ruin you, which, in hindsight, was accurate. We matched on some shady app that required no phone number and mostly had profiles like, I am real woman, like dogs and techno. She tells me, over cheap beer and clove cigarettes, about a private rave happening that weekend. Real exclusive, invite only, in a decommissioned Soviet military bunker. I laughed, thinking she was exaggerating. She wasn't, so Saturday night rolls around. I show up wearing what I thought was cool rave attire. Mesh shirt, reflective pants, LED necklace. Anya shows up looking like she just robbed a cyberpunk arms dealer. She gives me this once-over like, you're gonna die, but at least you'll die shiny. We hop into this beat to sh*t van with 5 other people who all look like NPCs from a dystopian video game. One guy had a gas mask on for no reason. Another was painting his nails in the dark while rapping in Estonian. The driver? Silent the entire time, except to say, no phones. GPS off. You get signal, you get shot. Cozy vibes. We drive for what feels like forever into a forest so dense it blocked out the moonlight. No signs, no roads, just tree branches smacking the windshield like nature itself was warning us. Then suddenly, we stop. No buildings, just moss, fog, and this massive rusted iron door sticking out of the earth like a scar. Inside? Holy sh*t. Picture this. Concrete corridors that go on forever, lit by flickering red LEDs and occasional strobe bursts. The whole place smelled like dust, old oil, weed, and body heat. You could hear the bass pulsing through the walls like the place had a heartbeat. There were people everywhere, dancing, grinding, levitating, maybe? In outfits that looked like they were thrifted from Mad Max meets a Berlin sex dungeon. No rules, no logic, just vibes and war crimes. There were stations set up. One dude was selling forest acid from a hollowed-out Game Boy. Another girl had a station where she'd bedazzle your nipples with glow-in-the-dark glitter. Someone had turned an old missile casing into a hookah. I swear to God there was a guy DJing from a Soviet command console. He had one headphone on and a squirrel on his shoulder. The squirrel was bobbing its head in sync with the beat. Still not sure if that was real or part of the drugs. Speaking of, at some point, Anya hands me a glass bottle filled with this neon pink liquid. It glowed under UV light and fizzed like Satan's Capri Sun. I asked what it was. She just grinned and said, fairy juice. Now, any sane person would have declined. But I am not that person. I chugged it like a dumbass on spring break. Within minutes, I felt like my skin was vibrating. Colors started leaking off people. The lasers were bending. I looked down and couldn't tell if I had legs or was just hovering. I wandered deeper into the bunker, the music fading behind me, replaced by this droning hum in the walls. The tunnels had that kind of silence that feels too quiet, like something's holding its breath. I passed a room full of people meditating around a vat of what looked like radioactive soup. Another where 2 guys were fencing with fluorescent tubes. Then I saw it. A long hallway with no lights. Just pitch black. My idiot brain, drunk on fairy juice and hubris, said, that's where the real party is. I take one step, then another, phone flashlight barely cutting through the dark. And then, I slip. Turns out the floor gave way a few meters ahead. Big-ass sinkhole in the middle of the tunnel. I tried to stop myself, but my boots had no grip and the floor was dusty as hell. I slid like a kid down a slip and slide straight toward the void. Last second, I grabbed the edge. One arm, dangling over this seemingly bottomless drop, breathing heavy, heart pounding like a jackhammer in my ears. Below me, just pure darkness and the sound of squishy movement. Something was down there, moving, breathing maybe. I'm hanging there, sweating fairy juice, thinking, this is it. I die in a Soviet F asterisk king hole. No one even knows my last name. My fingers were slipping. My entire life, just bad decisions on a loop. I once tried to heat soup in a plastic bag. I owned Bitcoin at the peak. I lost my virginity to the Twin Peaks theme. This was the logical conclusion. And then, boom, Anya appears behind me like a damn Slavic Batman. She's holding a cigarette in her mouth and this glowing fiber whip in one hand. She doesn't even yell, just casually drops down, grabs me under the arms, and, ISH*TU not, hauls me up with the strength of someone who's definitely moved bodies before. I collapse on the ground, panting, hands shaking. She sits down next to me, lights her cigarette with this torch lighter that lets out a whumph like a mini flamethrower, and says, "Next time, don't walk into shadows." I stare at her like she's a hallucination and mutter, "Fairy juice is a damn scam." So, there I am. Alive, barely, covered in bunker dust, existential dread, and probably at least 6 types of asbestos. Anya's sitting next to me, completely unfazed, as if yanking a grown-ass foreigner out of a Soviet death pit is just part of her night routine. Maybe it is. I wouldn't be surprised if she files taxes under underground rescue specialist. I try to stand up and immediately realize 2 things. My legs are spaghetti. I've lost one shoe. We shuffle back toward the main rave area, where everything's still in full-blown chaos mode. Somebody is DJing on what looks like a hospital gurney. There's a dude painted gold, doing the worm in slow motion. One of the rooms has been turned into a vibe spa, where a girl in a lab coat is massaging people with raw fish. Yeah, I don't know either. But now the fairy juice is really hitting. My brain starts doing cartwheels inside my skull. The bass feels like it's trying to punch its way through my spine. Every time I blink, the world pixelates. I ask Anya if there's water. She says, yes, but hands me a Capri Sun filled with something that tastes like battery acid and Vicks VapoRub. I look around and realize, this place is not okay. The air is hot and thick. The crowd's getting twitchy. Someone yells, "Medic," in Polish, and a dude in a ski mask runs past with a fanny pack full of syringes. Not a vibe. I whisper to Anya, "I think I need to go." She just shrugs and says, "Yeah. It's about to get weird." Wait, what was it before? Anyway, we grab our stuff, mine being just a vape pen and my dignity, half gone. We sneak out through one of the emergency tunnels, which, of course, is just another pitch-black concrete snake hole with rust water dripping from the ceiling in graffiti like, "Do not trust the rabbits," scribbled everywhere. After what felt like a year underground, we finally stumble out into the cold night air. And by air, I mean fog thick enough to chew. I hear wolves. Probably not real wolves. Might have been techno. We hike through the forest in near silence, occasionally passing passed-out ravers who look like they just respawned and glitched into the ground. At one point, we find a guy sleeping under a tarp with a sign that says, "Do not disturb. I am a moth." Didn't touch that. Eventually we make it back to the van. Except, the van's gone. Just tire tracks and an empty bottle of vodka in the dirt. I turn to Anya like, what now? She shrugs. We hitchhike, of course. We walk for an hour until we reach a 2-lane road. Still foggy, still creepy. Eventually, a beat-up old Lada pulls up. Inside is this old dude with one eye and a parrot in the passenger seat. The bird screams "PSSY boy" the entire drive. Anya chats with the guy like they're old friends. I just sit there, trying not to vomit or astral project. He drops us off near the border, which in reality is just a gas station with one flickering light and a vending machine that sells beef jerky and SIM cards. I'm thinking, okay, cool, I survived the rave, I'm done. Nope, because a border patrol van pulls up, slow and ominous. 2 guards get out, one's built like a fridge. The other has a mustache that could win awards. They walk up, glance at me, and immediately switch to serious Slav mode. "Where are you from?" "USA. Why are you here?" Tourism?" "You are on foot, near border, with no luggage, no passport visible. You look high." Valid points, honestly. They separate us. Start going through my pockets. Find my vape pen. I panic and say it's just for flavor. They are not amused. One of them sniffs it and mutters something about liquid ecstasy, which I'm pretty sure is not what I had, but I was in no position to argue. They detain me in the van. No handcuffs, but I'm sitting there thinking this is it. I'm gonna rot in a Latvian jail because I followed hot goth energy into a bunker full of ketamine and broken dreams. Then suddenly, the door opens. It's Anya, wearing a different jacket. She looks the officer dead in the eye and says, "He is my cousin. He got lost. He is special. We are going home now." They stare at her, stare at me, then at the vape pen. There's a long pause. The mustache guy sighs, "Next time, bring papers." And they let us go. We walk away. I don't say a word for 5 minutes. Just process. Then I turn to Anya and ask, "Did you actually change jackets just for that?" She smirks. Always have a second persona, just in case. I don't even ask more. I just nod, like, "Yeah, of course you do." That was my last night in Latvia. I booked a bus to Lithuania the next morning and nuked my old Discord. I still get weird DMs from usernames like @bunkerfi and glowcore, gulag. I never responded. I'm 90% sure they're watching. Would I do it again? Maybe. But I'd bring hiking boots and at least 2 fake ids.